In the Matrix indeed, it is I, Pooh Nanners, your Texas caster and hype master, and this time I'm joined by Sleepy of Onward VR fame. Sleepy, nice to see you, man. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, Pooh Nanners. How are you? It's just a classy little night here. Just finished up a cast a little while ago, and now we're here to run down some hot Onward action with you.
Hot Onward action indeed, especially with the likes of the Inferno squad. Those guys are on fire. And luckily, I think I stopped sweating, so we have to get back to the highlights to heat it up. But first, we have to cover all the stuff that started out with Season 6 that took off, I believe, shortly before or after, at least the schedule was announced while you guys were in the UK.
Yeah, the 4 teams who were at the August ESL Invitational over in Leicester were informed while we were there via Discord that the next season, Season 6, would be starting while we were still over in the UK competing for our shot at title at OC5. So we were all taken back a little bit, like, come on, man, like, give us a break. We need a little time to recoup from all this international travel we're doing. But
well, I'd imagine after the initial invitational and then all the qualifying matches, which were super exciting leading up to the last invitational, that after seeing all that, people were so hyped to keep playing, and there probably lots of new people ready to play that they just like, we cannot wait for like this break to OC5. We must play now. And you guys are like, stress.
Yeah, pretty much. I think the devs and the league moderators and everything, they wanted to keep everyone's thirst for the competitive play quenched. So they went ahead and got that next season rolling while we were still kind of finishing up Season 5, kind of the finals and qualifications for OC5. So I understand where they came from, and I would understand where the teams who weren't vying for places at OC5 would come from, wanting to continue playing, especially after seeing what's happened to our great game and the great realm that is VR esports.
Exactly. And so like 10 days before OC5, Global Chem beat SMC Tactical when they're already going to have to face off against them against OC5. So it's like, why even tune in? But then again, people knew Global Chem was probably going to take SMC Tactical, and they're no scrubs, but at the same time, it is Global Chem. So it did come to them giving up only the first map, though, Quarantine, which is kind of unexpected, right? A little bit for Global Chem?
Yeah, a lot of people were surprised to see them lose that map to SMC because Global Chem is typically very, very strong on that map. So to see SMC, who is a bit weaker on that map typically, to show up and just take it away from Global Chem, everybody in the league was just kind of blown away, like, what just happened here? So yeah, definitely interesting. But Global got back on the horse, came back, they rallied, and they ended up winning the match. So expected Global Chem outcome, I guess.
Yeah, that's what they do, man. Now, sometimes they just like, we'll give you the first one. I think you were telling me that people felt like maybe they were not putting all the force in. I don't know. It could be just maybe they're slipping on Quarantine. Maybe they were tired. Who knows? But Boss Fight ended up losing to SMC Tactical as well in a challenge map on the 16th, which was a little bit unexpected. And then Beginners expectedly was able to take down your guys in a relatively clean but close match on Suburbia, and I think what was a first-time matchup between you and a European team, or at least the Beginners?
At least for that season. I know we have reached out in previous seasons for EU matchups, but typically just due to scheduling from the time differences, it doesn't usually work out. But yeah, we decided, you know what, we're going to challenge ourselves and try and play the top team from the EU, and, well, we got spanked, but, spanking is a good way to improve. So
did you start to feel that? I've noticed every time I watch them play that they do the same thing, especially when they're attacking anyway, is that they wait to the last possible minute to attack. And I feel like it's like a little psychological warfare, but it's also wearing you out, right? Because everybody's like crouched down. A lot of people have taken to just sitting on their ass. But, as you get older, which a lot of the other teams are, like mid-30s, early 40s, that you can't even sit on the ground like that without it messing up your back and hurting your knees. So they let you sit there or crouch there for 5 minutes straight, and then they charge in. You're not hopping back up. You're not getting out of the way. I feel like that's their plan. I could be completely off base here.
Well, it's pretty well known that the European teams in general are a bit more slow and methodical in their attacks, whereas the US has a tendency to be shock and awe, just kind of pound their way into the objective. So we knew what to expect with them. We know that they like to play like that. They have changed their tactics up a little bit since they were knocked out pretty early in the June Invitational and ESL in Leicester. But yeah, so we knew what to expect. I think they just had answers to all of our questions when we went in for the attack. I think They did
That's
their
beginners,
work, and
man.
yeah, they're very methodical. They study their enemies. They really do. And I mean, if you've seen them at the June Invitational, you would know that they
Hmm.
put in a lot of work strategizing and researching their enemies. So
I love it
kudos
though,
to
man.
them.
They
Yeah,
take
yeah,
it to the next
absolutely.
level. I really enjoy watching them play. Just like watching them play, win over at OC5, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. But let's get into more of these games. On that same day, SMC Tactical was able to barely take down Blaze, almost losing on their mass map, Suburbia, but they won just barely. They eked it out. And then, but then Tactical, not even, what is it, like a week later on the 23rd, they were able to win their fight against Phoenix. They lost on total points, but map wins are where it counts, right? So it doesn't matter
That's it.
if you get outpointed. Sometimes you're just going to give up a map. Sometimes you're going to lose hard. I see that happen to a lot of teams if the other team is much better on downfall. I believe I watched beginners do that. The open qualifier, where on downfall they just completely trounced the opposing team. Was that Legionnaires? I don't remember who it was that they played against.
Yes, it was. It was
Yeah,
Legionnaires, and
they got
Legionnaires actually.
roasted.
Yeah, and that was a shock to most of the players because Legionnaires actually have a pretty strong downfall game, to be
Hmm.
honest. But it's just no match for beginners, and beginners just showing that over the weeks. And while they weren't at the qualifier for the ESL in August, that they were putting in their time, they were doing their research, and they were figuring out new ways to stay at the top. And we saw that happen. Like you said, we'll talk about it later at
So it's right
OC5
here.
when they took down Global Camp.
We could talk about it right here. OC5 is when it happened. So that was the 23rd. So that was right before OC5 began, which, you got to be able to cast for it. You got to be able to work with that $1 million stage. Did you do any work on the demo stage too, right?
I didn't know. They actually
Okay.
only had me do the analyst test for the grand finals, which
Oh, that's the
I'm
good stuff anyway.
yeah. I got the big stage. Now, granted, I didn't get to be out in the middle of the stage like our friend
You
Radar
were
had.
on the big screen like you were there, though.
Yeah, that's true. I realized that after watching the VOD that they put us up on that.
It was
big
hot,
screen.
dude. It was so cool.
Yeah, but it was a complete blessing, and for me being just kind of this lowly community shoutcaster
Oh,
who
give yourself some credit.
Yeah, well, I'd like to, but I try and stay humble, and
Well, there's
if
that
it
too,
were
yeah.
some of the other casters within the community putting my name forward and
Mhm.
suggesting people to take a look into my stuff that I've done with some of the other community casters on our VMRL channel, I would have never had that opportunity. So I'm super thankful for that, and is super blown away by the experience, and I hope it continues happening. I really hope that I continue to provide casting and analytical support for VR esports going forward with the ESL or whoever happens to be picking it up and taking it on.
Yeah, man, lots of people jumping into the space. You're seeing VR arcades pop up, virtual athletics leagues doing a thing. You got the collegiate esports guys. You probably ended up talking to a handful of them at OC5. I know they were hitting up a bunch of casters to do their own thing. I even find out casinos are starting to get in the game with esports betting, and they're going to host their own VR esports and get people to bet on that. So all kinds of crazier stuff can happen. And now that you've been on that big stage, you got that notoriety. People can see that somebody trusts you with that position. You did a great job, man. I really enjoyed the entire production. There's a few glitches here and there, but it happens with the short notice we're going to do. I know Downpour had to buckle down for a month solid and completely revamp the UI and add all these extra bells and whistles, as well as they did a lot of post-processing changes, so it looked much better. They changed the IK. It was good stuff. But we're not here to talk about OC5 as much as we would like to keep talking about it and the after party fun that we had. But we're going to move on to the 30th, I believe 3 days after we all left OC5, where your team, Danglers, had to take on Mob Squad. Now, you weren't in this when you were casting this one, you said, or?
I was either casting this one or another game that was going on at the exact same time as this one. But yeah, we went into it thinking that we had it in the bag because Mob Squad had taken a bit of a tumble ever since losing one of their star players between the first ESL Invitational and OC5. So Mob Squad wasn't quite doing so well. They hadn't quite gotten it back together. The morale was kind of low. So we figured we were going to go in there. We were going to wipe the floor clean with them, get our MMR points, and just keep it moving. But unfortunately, they came in. They put up a great fight. This final score ended up being 10-8. And yeah, so it kind of told us, hey, we need to calm it down with being cocky when we go into these games. Even if we feel like we should have it, or if we know we're going to have it, we should still go into it with an open mind and think that, hey, anyone can have a good day, we can have a bad day, and that could end things one way or the other for us.
It's a psychological mindset that Eclipse was able to pick up from their pro player. They had a pro esports player that got roped into an exhibition match for Echo Arena for E3 the months before it was ever released into beta. That was like a little exhibition match that Intel and Oculus put together. And there was one guy who was a professional player for Overwatch, played for Counterlogic Gaming, iShiny. He was interested in the game. And then he got to meet Lemming, and then we did a launch event at Ready at Dawn Studios, and they got to meet again, and he encouraged them to play on their team. And since iShiny had all this experience as an esports player for many years, he was letting them know all this like professional level stuff that you learn from like, these coaches and what have you. And that was one of the big points, was that approach every game and match with respect. Like, that team can beat you. Do not take your past experiences into that game with that team of how you're going to feel about them. And every single match, even if you had a blowout the previous match or the previous round, you don't think about what happened there, because that will color what you're going to do here. You'll end up pulling punches, you end up messing up. Or if they just destroyed you, that will end up making you pull back and kind of play awful. You don't think about that. You address every map and every score as though that is the only focus right now. And you approach the same way that you've always practiced, unless you have to adapt around something that's giving you trouble. And
Yeah,
it worked out for them. They're still undefeated.
Yeah, that's great advice. And yeah, I actually got to witness the kind of the top teams of the Echo arena battle it out there at OC5, and I was quite impressed with the skill that I saw there. I mean, because I've dabbled in that game, of course, a little bit here and there, but I'm nowhere near. If I were to hop into a lobby with those guys, I would probably be very discouraged.
I feel like you learn fast though. When you play against crazy, I hear that from all the like up and coming players, that playing with top players, like your skills just come up quick.
That's true.
But unfortunately, you just have to basically commit all of your time to that game. You can't play other games when you want to play at a professional level. It seems like just about any game. That's why iShiny doesn't play for the Echo Arena team anymore. He's like on an Onward team kind of consistently now, and he's like, yeah, I can't split my time. Not enough time for it. But
no,
you do what you got to do. Moving on to Animal House, on the same day that Danglers were able to take Mob Squad, Animal House was able to face off against Burning Chrome. And it all came down to this clip. Sleepy, walk us through this.
Yep. So as you can see, the score is 2-1. Steven is approaching the objective of Section 8 there at the top right of your screen. He tried to throw a frag, but unfortunately he cooked it for too long and ended up killing himself. And in Onward, there is a rule where if you kill yourself as the last remaining player of the defensive team, you give the enemy team 2 points. And that's exactly what he did. And he gave them that map and coincidentally the series in total.
Cooking a nade is a very risky behavior.
It is, and oftentimes it can come back to bite you. One of our players was in a big match against Mob Squad in a previous season, and he overcooked a grenade on the very last round where they were getting ready to cap the objective and win the round, and he overcooked it, and as he released it from his hand, boom, it went off and killed himself, and that was the end of it, and that was over. And so yeah, they're definitely very risky.
On Wednesday on the demo stage, I didn't see it, but somebody told me, it might have been Nightfire. He said that during one of the matches, they tossed in, I think it was SMC Tactical played against Globo, right? Is that
correct?
Yeah, He said during one of their matches, they tossed in an uncooked grenade, and Sickness actually saw it and tossed it out the door just like a hair second before it exploded.
Yeah, that's one of the newer mechanics that's entered in within the last season or so, where you can actually pick back up things like frags or flashes or smoke grenades that have been tossed and move them, throw them away, throw them back at the enemy, what have you. Kind of similar to the old Call of Duty days where you could throw back that frag grenade at an enemy and get a kill on them with it.
I would like for it to be able to happen where if that grenade's coming and you see it, you can just turn your gun around and bat it away with the butt. That'd be sick. Or at the very least, awesome. You realize you're absolutely garbage at throwing grenades. You just like throw it up in the air and just knock it out. So it's a much better mechanic. Oh, we can dream. A man can dream. Well, moving on to the next week, because that was right there. That would have been week 4 of VRML. Moving on to I guess this would be week 5 on October 7th. Danglers, your guys, went up against the Stone Cold Killers. Tell us a little about that match. That was supposed to be a short, entire match, right? Like an hour straight?
We managed to pull out an entire 3 maps full series in only 60 minutes, which is pretty impressive. That's basically 20 minutes per map.
Score is brutal.
Yeah, and the score overall 13-3. The first map 5 points to 1, 4-1 the second map, and 4-1 the third map. I think we got a total of like 4 or 5 caps in that map, and it was great morale boosting, especially coming off that close win over Mob Squad. It kind of let us feel like we were back in control of our game. And Stone Cold Killers, while they are a team in the mid-tier, kind of rising through the ranks right now and improving greatly, they still have a ways to go before they're just competing with those top-tier teams. And, a match like this is only a great way to improve themselves. So
So I have a format question here. Y'all aren't doing best of three. You're just paying 3 maps straight, or what's up with that?
Well, okay, so how it works in the VRML is we play a best of three. The team who wins 2 maps in the series wins the match. However, we play all 3 maps because points make the difference in the MMR gain and loss between teams. So obviously the team that wins the series wants to have the points spread vastly so that they gain more MMR for winning, and the team that loses obviously wants it to be diminished as much as possible so they lose as little as possible in the overall ranking. So that is why we play all 3 maps. Well, that's the thing, though. Nobody really knows the full formula. We just know kind of a general idea of how it works. And I think it's kept secret from us players in order for people not to be able to abuse the system.
You guys are gamers. You'd figure out a pattern. You'd find a hole in the armor.
Yeah, exactly.
So just a few days later, G-Man went up against Globochem, and they said, this is a pretty good match. We had a couple of rushes here, so take us through this.
Yeah, so this is going to be the very last map, Tanker. G-Men are going to be trying to get a very aggressive push out. As you can see, 4, 5, 6 smokes coming out from the G-Men. And unfortunately, though, bang, the kills start to come out. Arsenic picks up 1. Pants down 2 right away. He's going to turn around. Mr. T, and a.k.a. Toast, is going to pick up another one. And Pants is going to turn around and get the 5th kill.
Pants is a murder machine.
Yes, he is. And they ended that round with 20 seconds in. The round started at 6 minutes. They ended that one at 5 minutes 40. A quick 20-second annihilation from Globochem there.
And not to be outdone, though, we had another match that went the other way, right?
Yeah, the very next round, in fact. Globochem trying to do the same thing, popping off smokes, and then all of a sudden you see the screen just lighting up at the bottom there. The G-Man picking off 2 and or 3. Chief Pineapple then picking off Raphael. Chief then grabs Arsenic as well, and then Mr. T is going to take down Chief, and then the G-Man and a.k.a. the Man going to come out from the middle of the Tanker, take down Toast for an incredible 25-second round. So you give them 20 seconds, they give you 25 seconds, and they say, you know what, we don't like the taste of that food. We're going to give you some of it for yourself.
Yeah, man. Well, it's like, we'll eat your cheese, but you got to eat ours.
Yeah, exactly. Our stinky toe cheese.
Ultimately, I believe Globochem ended up winning that entire series, right? It was 0-4.
Yeah, pretty handedly, in fact.
5, right?
Yeah.
So still, still very fun to watch. At least, they took a point away from them in the end on Tanker. I think they ended up doing it twice, though. They got another point off of on Tanker. It was like 2-5 was the total score on that one.
Yeah, 2-5 in that total. The overall score for the match, though, was only 2-13. So those 2 points on Tanker were the only 2 points that G-Men were able to secure from Globochem. But it is Globochem. You got to be careful. But I think at a certain point that G-Men might have lost a little bit of morale there, and they kind of let Global walk a little bit more. I think typically they put up a bit of a better fight, honestly. I think that score doesn't really justify how good the match actually was, and that's the thing with Onward, that happens a lot. You'll see a giant score spread, but in fact it came down to like 1v1s at the end of each round, with 30 seconds left. Somebody finally gets that last kill, and it just happens to work out better for one team than the other. So
Tanker's a fun map. The only map funner than Tanker is Subway, right? For those of you who don't know, Subway is absolutely horrible. All right, so moving on. It's fun for the camera. I do find Subway's fun to watch, but is not fun to play in, and not fun to defend if they're using that northern capture point.
Yeah, it's a pretty imbalanced map as it sits currently. I know the devs are actually working on fixing that, so we could be seeing Subway re-enter league play more frequently, but for now, it's a map that you typically don't see any of the top tier or really any of the teams play at all. So
real quickly, we mentioned that the devs played against the beginners. They picked up Arsenic to kind of help them build a 5-man team. But it went about as well as you'd expected it to. The beginners just crushed them. We don't have any clips from it because there was just some issues with the recording. So if you missed it, sorry. But to be fair, you didn't miss it too much anything. The devs are no scrubs, but I mean, it's the beginners, the world champions right now. They were able to prove it in a LAN for, I guess, the second time they got a chance to prove this in a LAN game, but this time on $1 million stage where there's lots of like stress and all these other things you have to deal with, something to prove.
And a live audience watching them in front of them, not 20 feet.
Oh yeah, dude. Hearing the audience like go hush or hearing them like cheer for you is something else in VR games too. Even with all the headsets on and you're kind of closed in, you can hear it come through somebody else's mic and what have you. You're like, oh, he's over there. Oh, man. Well, moving on from the Dev versus Beginners match on the 13th of October, Lemon Squad was able to take on Boss Fight, and we've got ourselves a clip from that. Set it up, Sleepy.
Yeah, so here you'll see Scooby-Doo, the man in black there, utilizing his tablet to bait out some shots from the Lemon Squad members. He's basically trying to mimic his head peeking over this wall
Oh,
to
who
draw
falls
some
for that?
shots. Well, you'd be surprised, actually. But yeah, so he's trying to do that. He knows that some grenades have come out. He knows they're over there. So what he's going to do, he's going to grab his frag grenade off of his pouch. He's going to wind up and wait for it. Hear it.
How long is he going to cook that and then hits the very wall he was just riding?
Yeah, unfortunately, it does get him. He's cooked it too long. He tries to run away, and
that's some high-level play right there, I think.
Yeah, that was high-level Benny Hill style play right there.
It's Scooby. Scooby's always good for entertainment. Usually he's a good frag master, but this time he fragged himself. I guess that still keeps him the frag master. He's so good he even can kill himself. Now, in that one, did Boss Fight win over Lemon Squad, or Lemon Squad end up winning ultimately?
Lemon Squad ended up winning the match, but they ended up losing the map that the community thought they would take away from Boss Fight handedly. So it was a little bit of a shocker, but overall, the Lemon Squads were able to take down Boss Fight in that matchup. So
Boss Fight not having a stellar showing this season so far. Is Radar still playing on the team?
I believe he is still listed as a rostered member, but I know that he has pulled back quite a bit because of some real life responsibilities as well as being a caster. He's tried to kind of separate himself.
He's got a new baby too, doesn't he?
Yes.
Me and him were sharing baby pictures.
he's a new papa, so obviously that's going to take up a lot of your time, and so he has been dealing with that, and also he's been asked to do a lot of the LAN event castings, as I'm sure any of you who have watched any of the VR League stuff in the past have seen him at either the caster's desk.
He's good.
He is good. He's got a great face for it. He's got a great analytic side of him as well. I think he looks well-rounded caster.
And it's also that for the American taste anyway, that British voice, you're immediately like, oh, this guy knows his stuff. I mean, it also helps that he knows his stuff, but it just really adds that extra level. So anytime I hear him, I was like, man, this guy's got it. This is that pro level thing when you meet him. He's like, all right, this guy's been doing it a long time. He's like, I just started last week. So he's a really cool guy. I enjoyed him. Like they were asking us to submit headshots because I just had my baby as well. And that's like all I had been doing. I took a picture of me like, all exhausted and disheveled with my baby laying on my shoulder. And he immediately responded with essentially the same picture with his baby laying on his shoulder. Like apparently we were doing the same thing while we were talking in Discord. He's like, let's submit these as our headshots.
That would have been crucial. I didn't even have any headshots. I'm like, you know what? Why don't you guys go back to the last ESL Invitational and just take my little solo player profile photo and use that? Like, that's all I got. I'm not a Hollywood guy. I don't have that.
What I used is I captured from the beginning. They had like a highlight reel at the beginning of the OC4 stream for Echo Arena on the big stage. And the editor who was putting it all together, he was like taking a bunch of pictures, doing a bunch of stuff. And he's like, give us a pose. And I don't remember what Blue did, but I just looked at the camera and went, like just out of nowhere, and it showed up at the beginning of the stream, and I was like, "Oh, dude, that's the best I think I've ever looked in pictures." And I was like, I just clipped that out and said, "Here's my headshot."
Nice.
I don't have professional headshots; they would come out terrible. Every time my wife wants to take pictures of us, she's mad about how my face looks because I don't know how to like fake smile or look good on camera.
Yeah, same. Yeah, I'm the same way.
All right, well, just a day later, right? Blaze took on Boss Fight, and we got a couple more clips. Let's set it up and knock it down.
So this very first one comes in at the very first round of the very first map of the series. Blaze starting off with a very heavy smoke toss. Some of them effective, some of them not so much. You see a couple of bouncing off the side of the map there, getting stuck on top of a rooftop. Either way, though, here we go. We're going to see Not Ready in the top left of our screen begin to push around. He gets one. He grabs two. Now he's going to double back around and pick up three. Now his teammate Krauso is going to pick up one, and then he ends up getting team killed, but at the same time he is able to trade with Scooby-Doo for the last kill and getting Blaze the win at a quick 26 seconds in the very first round, and that kind of set the tone for what we thought was going to be the rest of the match, but turns out Boss Fight ends up waking up later and getting to it. Meanwhile, in the very last map, we have Naoko running up with this interesting shield play. He runs up, puts his shield on the window, cooks a grenade, and then tosses it in. Meanwhile, old Scooby-Doo with nothing to do but watch as he gets blown up. Naoko eventually going to push his way up here to the objective building, which isn't covered later in the clip here, but he is eventually killed trying to go for the objective capture. But
He's a
overall,
sneaky
very
guy.
yeah, yeah. Blaze is one of the newer teams here in the Onward Master League. I think they were formed in Season 5, and they have been improving tenfold every time you see them play. They're just getting better and better, and I honestly think here by next season, at the very latest, we're going to be seeing them battle it out with teams like Danglers and SMC and Globochem at the top of the American leaderboards for
Let's
sure.
not leave
They are
Animal
putting
House
aggression.
out. They've been rising pretty good too, right?
Yeah, that's very true. Animal House definitely been improving a lot. I mean, even SMC, who is also one of the already top tier US teams. I have been, obviously watching a lot of the casts and casting a lot myself since prior to and after OC5. And I have seen a dramatic improvement in the consistency of SMC. They have really been putting in the work since going to OC5 and maybe even a little bit before, where now they are really a force to reckon with. It's less about them relying on individual talent for each player to get the kills and to get the map wins. It's now about like a structured strategy, and they're very synchronized now, whereas before it was kind of a little bit all over the place, and they were just playing very aggressively just to be playing aggressively. Now their aggressiveness has some thought behind it, and they're really doing some damage this season and just after and before OC5. I mean, they were able to take a map from Globochem right off the bat at the semifinals, which Nightfire and Jason Kaplan both were like, whoa, did that just happen?
Yes, it did.
Yes, it did.
It came to play, man.
Exactly. So
that's good to see, and good to hear from all these guys. It's good to hear Blaze is taking off. Those Inferno family teams are scrimming against each other in order to get better every day. I'm sure they're not scrimming every day. You're probably pretty close to it. Let's move on to the standings. These are not exactly up to date because you just casted another match, but pretty much as far as I believe week 6 that we're into right now. Is it week 6 or week 7? What are we into?
We just closed week 7 actually tonight. So these standings are from week 6. So they're pretty current, but there has been some shuffling about done since this week's matchups, but we'll cover that in a later episode next week. And but yeah, this is currently what the worldwide global rankings are set from 1 to 10 right now.
Yeah. And we'll probably break these out to divisions later on. Now that Onward's like its own longer show, we can afford to give you more cards. But it's pretty much what you expect. Globochem sitting on top, but really just because they have one more win or one more game played over beginners. SMC Tactical sitting where they are. Boss Fight with several more losses than you would expected. Just kind of weird for them. G-Men looks like they haven't actually showed up to a lot of games for some reason. You're seeing 4 games there for them instead of 6 or 7. I don't know what happened there. Do you know what's going on with G-Men?
So G-Men actually utilized their bye week that they were given as one of the Leicester teams at the previous ESL event. They did utilize that bye week, and then they actually did a postponement of the week following that bye week because due to the travel and the competitions that have been involved, their personal lives had taken a little bit of a hit. Significant others and whatnot getting a little on edge about all the commitment and time that they've been putting in, and which is understandable, and that is something that our players try and balance with. That real life balance and responsibility does take a toll.
I left my wife at home with a newborn, man.
Oh, I no, don't get me wrong. I believe one of the members of G-Men who had just recently had a baby actually cut out like half of his yearly planned vacation with his wife and wife's family in order to go to the ESL event in Leicester. So it was a bit of a touchy subject. A lot of relationships, I think, took a hit. Personal relationships and responsibilities took precedence over the league.
Like, the way I'd explain it to my wife is stuff like this is like, this is like a rare event. Like this stuff comes once in a lifetime and you get to do it and then it's going to be over. So, and you'll just, as like the family stuff that we can do, like going on like a family trip or whatever. What do you do? Like, you said it's a yearly trip to do it every year. I was like, all right, I'm going to miss half of it this one year. It doesn't mean nothing. I was like, I'm probably not going to get to do this again. If I do, maybe one more year. So let's like let that. And if it does take off and I keep doing it more, that's like a cool thing that I can do. And it makes my kids proud of me. So it's all fun. Well, that's all the coverage that we have for here, but we're going to try to continue to do this show some more, right? So we're reaching out to anybody in the community. If you have clips or highlights from this week's show, the stuff that we're about to cover or the stuff that comes up, Be sure to let us know. Hit us up saying, hey, here's some highlights y'all should cover. This is what happened. This is the week it's from. This is the match it's from. Whatever it is. Send us any information you have or stuff that you want to talk about. If there's some things in the game, something that you noticed, something that you think would be good changes to the meta, just let us know. This is a community project. We build this as a community in order to let more people know about the games that we love, to get more people playing VR, and in this case, Onward VR. So to make sure you tune in to VR Master League or vrmasterleague.com/onward. And on Twitter, onward_VRML. You should be able to find on both of our follow lists, which will pull those lists up right here. Sleepy is right there. Is listed as a commentator, and me and Poonanners play. Buxton Water UK is our writer. Wrote pretty much the entire episode as well as the article that I believe we have up on VRespawn.com right now. Chris A. Brown, also our associate producer, putting together some of the graphics that we used, and we're gonna have to task him more graphics so we can get like divisions listed out. So anything you want to give us, you want to be part of the show, want to be part of the site, you want to help more people know about the games that you love, be sure to reach out to us. We don't consider ourselves some special thing that you can't talk to us. Literally, anytime you DM any of us on like Discord or on Twitter, we're just right there. It's like, oh, hey, somebody wants to help. So we're here for you. What do you got? What do you think, Sleepy?
Yeah, I think it's all good. I think without the community, without you guys wanting to tune in and see stuff like this and see the progression of VR esports, and particularly Onward VR in general, we wouldn't be here. It would just be me and Poonanners just talking to ourselves about what we think is going to happen and what's going to go on in the future. So without you guys here watching the VRMRL Twitch streams and OC5 stuff and things like that, and taking an interest in this, we would have nothing to talk about. We would just end up talking to each other until we bored each other to death, and then none of you guys.
I could talk to a tree, man.
Yeah. My mom always said I'd argue with a brick wall when I was a kid.
So you've tapped yourself the exact market you need to be in, being a commentator. I tell people your primary job as a commentator is to fill dead air.
Yeah, which we had a lot of it at OC5, so I got a good practice with that.
Oh man, I had to stall for like 2 hours straight before they just killed the stream. They're like, all right, we have to wait till tomorrow.
Yeah.
It happens. It's we always have fun. All right, well, as the song says, ain't nobody stopping us. That's right. We're going to keep on going, keep on trucking every day. That's right. Get a little dance on. Let us know, man. As we said, we are here for you, at your disposal. We're going to try to get more people on the show, start trading people out at some point. I won't even be here because what do I know? But until then, I'm going to be helping these guys get this show off the ground. So stay tuned for more.